Hello everyone, welcome to This Day. It is Saturday, July 29th, and I'm Michael Taylor. Thanks for joining us. We have a pretty fun show today. The King of Whoopee, Bob Eubanks, is going to be here talking to Bobby Higgins, and they're going to be talking about Bob's early days with the Beatles. Did you know that he worked with the Beatles in the early days when they were first doing tours and stuff here in the United States? Well, Bob's going to tell us all about it. That's going to be brought to us by the folks at the Boomers Club, and that should be a really fun conversation that Bobby got to have with Bob. Also on the program, I sit down with Charles Redner, and we're going to do some spoken word poetry. He's going to be telling us about some events they have coming up for everybody to enjoy, so stay tuned for that. Hey, we want to make sure you are informed, and one of the Pillars of Brain Health events is coming up. It's part of the Optimal Aging Lecture Series on brain health, and that's going to be Thursday, August 3rd, 2:30 in Clubhouse 7. You can call the number on the screen there, 949-597-4267 for more information. We want to take a look outside and take a look at our weather. In mid to upper 80s for most of the weekend. It's going to be warm and sticky, so make sure you have the sunscreen and water with you. It's going to be a lot hotter than it feels like. Our sunrise and our sunset, we have the 6 a.m. sunrise and the 7:53 sunset. This photo for our own sports corner man, Cole Young. He's out at the Rancho Santa Margarita concert in the park, and he got that picture. Fantastic sunset. That looks fantastic. I'm sure it was a great show as well. If you'd like to send us a picture, you can do so. Just go ahead and send it to us at Laguna Woods Village Television at gmail.com. Make sure you send us your name. We knew Cole's name, but make sure you tell us your name, where the picture was taken, and make sure you take that picture horizontally so it fits on our screen just fine. Okay, when we come back, we're going to be talking, Bobby Higgins is going to be talking with Bob Eubanks and all about the Beatles. Stay with us.
Hi there, it's Bob Eubanks. You probably know me from the Newlywed Game, but what you may not know is I'm the only living person to have produced a Beatles show all 3 years they toured America. I've put together a great show called Backstage with the Beatles. I tell seldom or never before heard stories that lead up to music with a Beatle band on stage with me, Ticket to Ride. We're going to be here, Laguna Woods, in the Pack, September 23rd at 7 p.m.
Welcome back to This Day. We have a really special guest here. We have legend Bob Eubanks joining us. Thank you so much.
Legend, that means you're old if you're a legend. Yeah.
Or you've had an extremely successful career.
I've had a good time for sure, but I'm coming here and I'm really excited because I found out that I'm the only living person to have produced a Beatle concert all 3 years they toured. So we put together a show called Backstage with the Beatles, and I tell seldom or never before heard stories that lead up to music. And I have a Beatle band on stage with me, and we're going to be here, and I'm excited, on September 23.
That's right. Yeah, I know. What an amazing concept of an idea. I just think this is such a stunning idea to tell the stories and tell the memories and the things that you experienced with them.
I found out the Beatles are the only group where the age starts at like 10 and goes to 90,
Yes.
It's amazing how their fans have just sustained and they're amazing guys. Today, by the way, is the day that John Lennon and Paul McCartney met in 1957.
No way, on this day.
Yeah.
And were they at school, or what was, how did they meet?
I think so, yeah. I'm not really sure. I didn't get that part of it, But I tell really interesting stories, and about 80% of them happened to me. But there are some really, can I tell a story?
Absolutely, please
Okay,
share.
I'm gonna tell a story. This is one of the stories that I'll be telling that evening, so here we go. Paul McCartney had a medley in his head, but he didn't have any words to it. And so he called it Scrambled Eggs. So he walked around for 2 weeks singing scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs, scrambled eggs. And he finally put the words to it. And Scrambled Eggs became one of the most recorded songs in the history of music. Scrambled eggs became yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that something?
Really?
Yeah.
It's just so incredible to me how musicians come up with songs, how they hear the sounds in their head, or they have maybe a poem they've written and then how they put it all together. I just find it so incredibly fascinating. Your career has been incredibly fascinating. I did not know until yesterday that you had started out as a disc jockey. And
yeah, I started out at a little bitty radio station in Oxnard, California, and I was working midnight until 8 in the morning. And I wanted to do what the big guys do. I wanted to have a rock and roll album giveaway contest. So I went to the manager and I said, I need 2 albums. He said, I'm not going to give them to you. So I had to go buy 2 albums. And I must have mentioned it 50 times that night, next week, and and I finally came up with an idea. Okay, rock and roll album giveaway time. I'll give them to the first person that calls. Nobody called. So I made up a name and I took them home. And I realized right then that I'm talking to myself. So one morning I get off the air and in my little Volkswagen, I drive to the hot news station in Southern California, KRLA. I just wanted to see what the big guys look like. And I'm sitting in the lobby, and the DJs are having a meeting, and I could tell that the all-night man had a sore back, and nobody wanted to sit in for him because they worked 3 hours, and he worked 6. So I walked up to the program director, and I said, oh, hi there, I'm a disc jockey. He says, do you belong to the union? I said, no, but I can. And I borrowed $360, joined the union, and I went on the air that night, and I was there 7 years.
Wow, what a story. That is crazy, just to walk in the door and then make it happen.
At that radio station, by the way, we had these steps over in Pasadena at the Sheraton, and the girls used to come and sit on the steps when they wanted to meet the disc jockeys. And there was a guy who would come with his guitar and play and sing out there too. His name was Charlie Manson.
Oh boy.
So anyway, back to the Beatles.
Yes, yes. Well, and then I just wanted to touch upon that. A lot of people probably know you from the Newlywed Game or the Rose Parade. And funny enough, I actually auditioned for the Newlywed Game, my husband and I, when we first were married. Yeah.
Do you have children?
We do now, yes. We have 5 children, yeah.
Oh, well, you already knew what Whoopi was. Why wouldn't you don't want to be on the show. Gosh.
So what gave you the idea to bring the Beatles to America?
Well, I travel with a live game show, and I noticed that there's so many people that still enjoy the Beatles and the Beatles music. It has no age restriction at all. So I figured I could put together a one-of-a-kind show, and we've been really successful with it. Back in April, I did 5 dates for the Distinguished Speakers Organization here in Southern Cal. And it's just been really successful, and we've got great comments. And I'm very happy because it's a one-of-a-kind show. And if you enjoy the Beatles, the Beatle music, you're gonna love our show because I tell seldom or never before heard stories. And like I say, about 80% of the stories happened to me during the 3 years that I did the Beatles. I mean, I have all kinds of stories that you're going to enjoy, believe me, along with the music of Ticket to Ride.
And these stories are from, so it was 1964, that was the first.
64, I did Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
Had a partner and made $4,000. They would only let me charge $7. All 3 years, $7 was the top price.
And so what would that be equivalent to today's prices?
Well, I don't know that, but all I can tell you is it was a lot of work, and I swore that I would never do another one after the 64. But then they came back to me and said, the Beatles want to play the Hollywood Bowl. I said, okay, but I won't do it unless I can have 2 nights. So I paid them $90,000 flat at the Hollywood Bowl. But I got smart. the Beatles in '64 made the radio station I was working with, KRLA, #1.
Really?
So I went to the radio station. I said, okay, let's make it KRLA and Bob Eubanks present. And I want 100 grand, and I want a 5-day work week, and I want to go from 15,000 to 20,000 a year. And so the next 2 years, Dodger Stadium was incredible. I got some great stories about Dodger Stadium. But it's a fun night. So be sure and come and see us. It's called Backstage with the Beatles, and you'll love it. If you like music and if you like the Beatles, I promise you that.
It sounds like a fascinating show. If I can, I'm going to try and score a ticket. I would love to come see it.
Hey, you know somebody, don't you hear?
I should. I know. I think I have connections now.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, your 5 kids can't come, but that's...
Right. So, but yeah, going back to the last concert at Dodger Stadium, I was reading that was the concert the Beatles couldn't leave the show, that all the fans were figuring out where they were, and
well, I'm not going to tell the story.
You were there that night,
but
I assume?
I will tell you, the Hells Angels were involved, and that was really scary. But it was Dodgers. It was the second to the last show they ever appeared in for money. They went to San Francisco, and that was it for money.
Did you know at that time that they were probably going to be breaking up soon?
Yes.
Like they were definitely very weary by that
Yeah,
point?
and you know, John had made the comment, the Beatles are more popular than Jesus, and he had to answer every question in the world. And it was really unfair to him because well, I won't say that. Never mind. Anyway, we'll talk about it, okay?
Oh my gosh. So what would you say? Oh, I know. Here's a story that you talked about that I saw on your promo tape, and it was for the Hey Jude song. How did that come about?
Yeah, when John and his wife were getting a divorce, their little son, Julian, was really hurt about it. And he was a good...
Do you remember how old he was at that point?
No, I don't remember. But he was a good friend of Paul's. And so Paul, he was going to go over to the house just to, you know, make him feel better and everything. And on his way over, he kept singing Jules, Jules. And by the time he got to their house, he had written, Hey Jude.
And what a great song.
Yeah. Sure
And
is.
so the other neat thing of that, the whole idea of what you created, I think, is just such a great way to do this, and that you have the tribute band is there as well.
Yeah, and it's my favorite tribute band, Ticket to Ride. You'll love them. They're wonderful, and I take them everywhere I go when I can, for sure.
How did you find them?
They were local, and I had a lady working for me that was a huge Beatle fan, and she told me about them. I went to see them, and you know, they even look like the Beatles. I mean, They're really wonderful. They really are.
Well, definitely. So let's go over the dates again and the time, and it's coming up.
September 23.
It's September 23rd.
Yep.
7 p.m. It's going to be here in Laguna Woods Village
That's
at
right.
the PAC, the Performing Arts Center. And so tickets are $45, $35, and $30. So I assume that's depending
And by
on
the
how
way,
close
the
you get.
Beatles would only let me charge $7 all 3 years, and
And so who decided that? The Beatles said, we don't want to make it too high for our fans, or?
Brian Epstein, their manager. You know, they loved him, but I thought he cost them several millions of dollars. First of all, they didn't have any merchandise. Okay? I mean, there are rock and roll acts that go out now and only live off the merch.
Right.
And he made a comment one time. I said, Brian, why are you charging? He said, I want everybody to save their money to buy albums. And I went, huh? You know.
Because back then, that was how you made most of the money, was on
Yeah.
the album sales,
But,
correct, right?
Yeah.
Well, it definitely seems like you're going to, I feel like it's you're taking the audience on a journey.
I am.
And it's going to be quite
And
memorable.
wait till you hear what happened with the Beatles over at Elvis's house. Ooh, it's fun.
Some great stories.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. What is the most memorable or fulfilling part of your career, would you say, to this point? Because you don't seem to be retired yet.
No, I'm not. The star on the Walk of Fame was a real thing for me.
Quickly, you said the star is at the location.
Where I got fired, yes. That was a big moment for me. I don't know, I've had so many wonderful times. I have a theory in life that you take what you know and you try to apply it in other areas. And that's what I've been able to do. And I've had a great time.
Well, an amazing innovator, and it's so pleasant to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you much.
And I wish you all the success with this show. What a great idea.
And you're a good makeup person, you know that.
I've had a little experience.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bobby.
Well, thank you.
See you on the 23rd of September. Be there, be
September
square.
23rd, that's right. Don't miss it. It's going to be a fabulous night. September 23rd at 7 p.m., the Performing Arts Center. So definitely get your tickets now. And stay with us because we have a whole much more coming up today on This Day.
Hi there, I'm Bob Eubanks. Remember me? I'm the king of whoopee. And you're watching Village Television. But everybody does.
We're going to be talking with Charles Redner from the Spoken Word Club, and we're going to speak some words and find out what the Spoken Word Club's all about, your history with it, and what we have coming up. Thanks for coming here, Charles.
Well, thank you for having me today. I have a couple of announcements which we'll get to, but
Yeah.
the Spoken Word Club is 15 years now, and it's an offshoot of the Writers Club. Once a month each year, we used to sit at tables, and we'd have all the novelists here and the nonfiction here. And the poets table only had 2 people. So we said, let's start our own club. Thea Iberol and I started this club 15 years ago.
Okay. And were you always drawn to poetry? Did you do poetry before you joined the club or
I was brand new to poetry at that time. I went to a writers conference over in Tucson, and the keynote speaker on the Saturday night, they usually have a keynote speaker, was Taylor Molley. He's a slam poet. Slam poetry is performance poetry.
Right.
He was like 5 times a national champion. And I saw him read, and I said, oh my goodness. So I became a poet that night.
Okay. Well, do you remember your first poem you tried to knock out? Were you happy with it? Is it something that's always evolving?
Well, poetry for me, it's a funny thing. First thing I did, I was writing a novel. I stopped writing the novel. I found an agent for the novel, but I stopped writing that, and I started writing poetry. And poetry just comes to you. I mean, it's really God's lips to your ears sometimes. That's the way poetry, to me it is. Sometimes it just floats out of the air and it comes. Others you have to work at that are pretty hard. But my first book, when I published it, my little chap book called Long and Coming, because it took me a long time to get into poetry. And when I got into it, finally I realized the whole thing was autobiographical. Okay. I didn't realize that while I was putting it together and writing the poetry, but much of
poetry seems very personal, right?
It
It seems something that, it's something from the heart, like you said,
Absolutely.
God's lips to your ears kind of a feeling, right? It's something that moves you more than maybe writing a memoir, so to speak.
Exactly, and what usually happens is the first line or a title will come to you, and then everything flows from there. And if it's really hard, it's probably not meant to be.
What was like one of the poems you thought yourself that just, I saw something, something happened and it just hit me? Can you remember like one of those moments?
Well, there are special moments, obviously, to all of us. When the towers came down on 9/11, I think every poet in America had to write something about it. So that was one that I did.
And what about like maybe on the fun side? Do you have fun with them sometimes? I think we're gonna read some poetry, by the way, here in a minute. But do you have some fun with them?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, my favorite poems are poems about poetry and about poets, and there's a lot of fun stuff you do. One of the first poems I ever wrote is called Infidelity, and it's a take on skipping your duties and reading poetry instead of going home for dinner right away. Instead of going out with the boys and having a drink, I'm sitting in the car writing poetry.
So instead of golf widows or poetry widows out there.
There you go. They're out there. That happens. That happens. But what we do at the Spoken Word, we meet once a month, and I say BC, before COVID, we met in the room downstairs, right here in the community center, the Elm Room, and we met once a month, usually the fourth Tuesday of the month, and we read poetry we've written. We can read from other poets. We can read the masters. You can do anything, and some people just come and listen. But poets like to be together. They like to drink their coffee and talk. I mean, it's just, they're a fun group and a loving group.
You ever sit in the room, you get inspired, you say, I never thought of doing it that way. Do you kind of feed off each other?
We do, but we don't critique. Everybody comes in, gets 3 minutes to read their poetry, and then you sit down and we talk about it, but we don't critique it per se. But yes, there are a lot of great ideas, and there's super poets. Our poets, we have a feature each meeting, and they come from LA to San Diego and everywhere in between. And they're usually we've had the Poet Laureate of California read. And now we're doing Zoom. We've been doing Zoom since COVID hit. And one of the things I wanted to announce today is that we're coming back September 26th, the last Tuesday of the month, and we're coming back live downstairs in the Elm Room again.
Okay.
So I'm so looking forward to that.
What would you say is the most important part for people to understand about poetry that maybe they don't understand? Some people find it a little to interpret it. You know, what should they get from poetry?
Well, you get whatever you feel, but the thing is with poetry, as I said, I avoided poetry all through my life, through college. You get introduced to Shakespeare. Maybe that scares a lot of people off. The first time you read poetry, it probably shouldn't be Shakespeare.
Right.
Okay? And so I have a feeling that poetry is just something that people will enjoy, and they'll all get something different out of it. You can write the most serious poem in the world, and people will go away laughing from it. Once you leave your pen, that reader is as important to the interpretation of it as you are as the author.
Right.
So if you laugh at a poem that I thought should be serious, that's your right.
And people can take different meaning. I think that's an important thing, that there's no right or wrong way in some ways to interpret a poem. It just is how it strikes you, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's my impression. And I don't teach poetry, and I just write it, and I read it, and I love it. So,
so you have a poem I want to get to.
Okay.
While we still have some time. It's What Separates Us. I want you folks to be able to hear that from you.
Yeah, that works right into what we were talking about. There's peace poetry. We have a peace day here. It'll be September 21, and it'll be in Clubhouse 7, I think, at 4 o'clock. And I'm asking people out there, spoken word people or just people in the village, if you write poetry or have poetry or haven't, I'd like to invite you to send me peace poems. Okay. What separates us? What separates us are oceans and rivers for a start. Mountains and fences us part. Wavy lines on maps, countries defined, where hidden histories may create past enemies of mind. Politics offers different points of view, which fashions may not agree with you. What separates us? Race, religion, and regulation to bevy, cultural and social mores, weigh heavy. Language generates a huge divide amongst nations, confusing simple wants from hurtful condemnations. Sexual orientation may provide a reference, but may take effort to abide by another's personal preference. Most earthlings we must do upon our diminutive spinning rondure of aqua hue, wandering amid a black void so vast and great that it must be measured by time, not a tape.
Now that's certainly, to me, and I'd imagine that it should be obvious to most, it's really about what shouldn't separate us, right?
Right,
the things
exactly.
that really shouldn't be doing that.
Exactly,
right.
Yes.
And maybe people can take a step back and say, is that something that should separate us? Should we be drawing dividing lines?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what poets would say, I think. Poets are like, you ever go to a sushi restaurant and sit at a bar by yourself? They're very friendly people. I mean, if you can't go to a sushi restaurant by yourself because you won't be alone long, because they're like poets. They want to talk, they're friendly, and they're easy to talk to.
That's wonderful. All right, let's try the one. We have one more. I want to make sure we
Okay.
get time for that one. And
Good.
this is World Peace Interrupted.
World
and I have
Peace.
a roll in here somewhere.
So do I.
There we go.
Let me find it here. Okay. This is for Taylor Mali and the land of Gandhi. Taylor Mali is a poet that I first heard. World Peace Interrupted. Imagine a poem that pursues world peace. Thanksgiving dinners sans arguments. A school playground without a scuffle. Civility returns to the U.S. Congress. Imagine a poem that elevates world peace.
Ring, ring.
Rappers remove F-bombs from their lyrics. Folsom Prison skinheads play music on the bars. Mississippi Klansmen burn hand-me-down sheets. Imagine a poem that promotes world peace. Machetes melted for dinner plates in Ethiopia. Fights in Thailand or over Pad Thai or Wonsan. Tanks back up in North Korea. Imagine a poem that advances world peace.
Ring, ring.
Cartel guns in Mexico go silent. Harmony settles over Palestine. War no more in Afghanistan. Imagine a poem that encourages world peace. The spirit of Gandhi spreads throughout Pakistan. Bomb makers in Karachi bake honey cakes instead. Al-Qaeda begs forgiveness before disbanding. I'm writing a poem to foster world peace.
Ring, ring.
Hello?
Lenin would have turned 80 today. Imagine.
I already have.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that is World Peace Interrupted.
Yes.
I have to tell you, I feel like I nailed my part.
Oh, you certainly did. And thank you for participating.
Absolutely.
That was sweet of you.
Charles,
Thank you.
want to make sure we get the first, next time you guys are meeting again, September 26th.
Right.
And you're also inviting folks to send in some poetry
Yes.
for World Poetry Day? World Peace?
World Peace, yes.
Peace poems, yes. Peace poems for Peace Day.
And they can send it to redcharlie@aol.com.
Yep, we got that information and the phone number up on the screen.
Okay.
I want to thank you very much. It was a fun experience this
Aw,
morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
Hope
for
you
coming,
enjoyed it.
Charlie.
The Salvation Army Orange County is committed to building hope in people's lives rather than just more shelters. The Center of Hope, a comprehensive homeless care solution, combines a 325-bed emergency shelter, 72 permanent supportive housing apartments, on-site medical, dental, vision, and mental health care, and an award-winning drug and alcohol rehabilitation center. Donate today to transform lives, create safer neighborhoods, and provide an opportunity to end chronic homelessness in Orange County.
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about the Saturday movie. It is going to be Mrs. Winterbone. You can see that one at 2 p.m. with subtitles and 6 p.m. without the subtitles. Let's take a look outside and check our weather one last time before we leave. It is nice out right now, but we're going to have partly cloudy skies. We're going to have that monsoonal airflow coming through, and it's going to be influencing our whole weekend. It's going to be warm. It's going to be humid. We might have some thunderstorms. We definitely have some clouds moving through, and that's going to be with us really for the next couple of days for sure into next week. So stay warm, or stay indoors. Keep the air conditioning on. If you go outside, make sure you're wearing sunscreen, bring water with you, all that fun stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of This Day. On Monday, Mission Hospital and the Saddle Club will be joining us, and we'll be having conversations with them. For all of us here at Village Television, we hope you make this day a great one.